Welcome back to What's Up with Jessup. We are back, and I'm going to be doing two things before I start the podcast itself, or actually starting the work. And I hope this might be helpful or fun just for you. So the first thing is, you hear the music. That's it. I love playing music just while I am working. So thing I will be working on right now is actually not work. I'm just going to be prepping so that I can have um, this music put into my phone. So that's all I need right now. What I'm going to do is go to iTunes, choose all the music that I have, put it in my phone. I know it's crazy that I don't have music on my phone, or at least not that much, but I am putting in one of my favorite artists, so you will get to see. And then another thing is I'm going to be downloading my thesis into a PDF so that I can look at it from my iPad or phone. I could print it out, but we want to save the turtles. What? Just kidding. We want to save the trees. Obviously, I know that. So that's what I'm going to do. And that's why I have saved it as a PDF just now, and then I'm opening it up. I will first be deleting all the parts that I don't need to look at, which is first the reference part. I'm deleting all of that. Oops. All right, I deleted that. Now I'm going to delete anything before the second half of the conclusion, which is from here. We're all good. So I'm deleting all of that. And now I know that I only have to look at 13 pages worth of stuff. Okay? And now I'm going to send this through AirDrop to my other device. How do I do this? I go to AirDrop, and then I send this to the device. All right, sending it right now. And I open it in Acrobat. All right, good. Now I got it. Now I'm going to be changing the music to this. Yeah, I'm getting into this artist recently. I don't know why. I think I saw her live video and it was pretty impressive. So that's what I'm doing. Now that I have the PDF open, what I'm going to do is share the screen and we can start working. But, this is a good opportunity to know that you want to make an environment that you are comfortable in. And these two are ways I make myself comfortable. First, playing good music makes you relax and have fun while you're doing work, because that's really the biggest secret in doing sustainable work. You have to enjoy it, you have to love it, and that's what I'm trying to do. Although this work project is no longer long-term in its horizon, I'm still taking that philosophy of work and applying it to what I'm doing right now. All right, let's get into it. You know the drill, I know the drill. If you're new, I will introduce you to it. First thing I do is I read it. I know, it's so hard. I'm just kidding, it is actually kind of hard. So we'll start. I've looked at 3 ways that organizations can work on cooperating with each other. So I think what I want to do is, in the roadmap, I want to add, now that the previous chapters have identified the problem of a divide among aid and rights workers, this chapter will provide policy recommendations of how to improve the situation of will provide, okay. Also, I'm trying to, wait. Okay, then we're good. Oops. Now I'm gonna write here. Oops. So how am I going to write? Let's see. So what I'm going to do is say this chapter, this is chapter 3, intro slash roadmap. What I'm going to do is this chapter will provide general recommendations on how the two communities can cooperate with each other. Okay, I should really work on writing better because this might be hard to read in the future. So then it will, based on these broader, so I'm going to say, based on these broader suggestions, based on these broader suggestions, actually, I want to say based on previous analysis, or based on previous analysis, based on insight from previous chapters, based on insights from previous chapters, this chapter this paper will provide specific policy recommendations based on insights from previous chapters. This paper will provide specific policy recommendations regarding that on how the communities cooperate with each other, general recommendations based on so what I'm going to do now is I want to move these things. So how can I move these? I want to, all right, this is what I'm going to do. Ready? I'm going to bring these on how the two can cooperate to the second sentence, and then say the first part will provide general recommendations on how on how on how fun songs. Let's see. These are based on. So I'm going to delete based on in the second sentence and say just with insights, and then I will use that in the first sentence. I know it's very complicated, but I'm using phrases that I would want to use afterwards, just in the previous sentence. So I'm saying that it will first provide general recommendations based on um, conflict resolution guidelines, based on three principles of conflict resolution. With insights from previous chapters, this paper will then provide specific policy recommendations on how the two communities can cooperate with each other, on how the two communities working on North Korea can cooperate with each other. I don't want to make it too official in saying it's a principle. And obviously I will go to find a synonym. What's a different word for principle? Precept, rule, guidelines, three foundations. Guidelines. Yeah, three guidelines sound better. Three guidelines. Yeah, I'm going to erase what I have and say guidelines. All right, we're ready. I've written 2 sentences for the introduction. Now we are completely ready to write. Go on. All right. Now let's start. Access to technology, such as satellite imagery, has since increased for. Okay, so I have to introduce this. Now I can use based on again. So, whoops. All right, we ready? No, this wasn't it. This is not it. Where was it? Oh, I forgot. All right. So now I can use based on again and say based on what we learned, based on insights, from the case study on case study on satellite imagery, right? Satellite imagery. So I think I'm going to bring this sentence up here. Based on insights from the case study on satellite imagery, the policy recommendation regarding for aid organizations is that humanitarian aid organizations is that they should start embracing Okay, I was distracted again. I know, you know, the doctor messaged me. I was running back. I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness. See, I feel so much like a millennial now. I'm always distracted all the time. Here, I'm just going to say, my pleasure, doctor. All right, I'm done. I am done. Mark boy, Mark boy, Mark boy. All right. Wow. The podcast so far is getting great traction. I'm really enjoying it. I appreciate your support. If you can, at this time, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, that would be very helpful. That lets other people know that this podcast exists and that you vouch for it. And therefore, you know, people can spend more time and learn more from the same podcast episode. So this is one way of sharing resources with others, and I appreciate it. You know, I want to help more people as well, and I feel like this is really a cool experience so far. So yeah, as long as I don't get too distracted by my phone, so I'm hiding it now. All right. Breathe in, breathe out. I'm good now. All right. Based on insights from the case study on satellite imagery, the policy recommendation for aid organizations is that they should start embracing technologies that allow physical distance, such as satellite technology. So I think I should say, based on insights from the professional goals, Based on insights about professional goals, also recommendation for aid organizations is that they should start embracing technologies that allow physical distance, such as satellite technology. Access has broadened. So I'm going to delete the next sentence because that's already said in the previous paragraph. And then satellite imagery remains a key instrument that allows human rights organizations to operate outside of a country. All right, now let's look at the second page. Ready? All right, next part. While satellite imagery analysis on politically sensitive areas, including military facilities and political prison camps, can certainly cause pushback, this is not necessary. I can just say cause pushback by the regime. Other neutral subjects can mutually benefit the regime and aid objectives without jeopardizing workers' ability to operate within the country. An example is the impartial presentation of information regarding agricultural yield, the impact of natural disasters, and other information about the climate. These kinds of information can inform the country about diseases, nutrition, and other social and economic factors. Other neutral. So, I think I want to bring back. I think I want to bring this paragraph to the end of the next two paragraphs, because it first says, it's reasonable that the North Korean regime does not like satellite imagery, but satellite imagery should be still used, right? North Korea's antagonism against satellite imagery is understandable because the technology has historically challenged state sovereignty and security during the Cold War. Especially during the Cold War. Satellite imagery was used to verify agreement terms of arms treaties such as the Strategic Arms Limitation Talks. The United States military also used satellite images to track the Soviet Union's military capabilities, including IBMs and GM boosters needed for spaceflight. So satellite imagery was used to verify so ICBMs and GM boosters. So was used to verify verify, was used to track what do you say when you follow something? What do you say when you follow an agreement? Accordance? Could be. Compliance. Oh. Silent imagery has been used to verify compliance to has been used to verify compliance to arms treaties. Has been used to verify compliance to arms treaties. Arms treaties. Such as the strategic arms limitation talks with the Soviet Union. SALT was done with the Soviet Union. I'm just gonna verify that. Strategic arms limitation talks, a treaty, bilateral with the Soviet Union. Yep, you're right. So strategic arms limitation talks with the Soviet Union. All right, because North Korea is developing similar ICBMs because North Korea's similar ICBMs are subject North Korea's ICBMs are subject to missile, because North Korea's nuclear and missile programs can be subject to similar because North Korea's nuclear and missile programs can be subject to similar scrutiny because North Korea's nuclear and missile programs can be subject to similar scrutiny, the Cold War satellite imagery is often perceived as a threat. Okay, so I've written one paragraph. And then I've deleted the first sentence, that historical traditions of Cold War narratives, blah, 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 because it's duplicate, it's redundant. And then there's no reason satellite imagery cannot become a neutral technology is also stated, so that is deleted just now. And then I'm going to delete the next sentence, that it's areas that are different from human rights organizations. It's the impartial presentation of information regarding agricultural yield, etc. An example is impartial presentation of information. Impartial presentation of information that can improve people's lives. That can improve people's lives. That can improve people's lives regarding agricultural yield, the impact of natural disasters, etc. Adopting new technology can help. These kinds of information can inform the country about diseases, nutrition, and other social economic factors. Adopting this new technology can help change incentives and help change incentives, help change aid workers adopting this new technology can help change aid workers incentives, how subject they are to outside influence. Adopting this new technology can help change aid workers' incentive structures and incentive structure and increase the legitimacy of their evidence. The legitimacy of their evidence. And I'm going to bring this one sentence right after that sentence by saying, oops, okay, done. And then I'm going to add one more arrow so that I can bring this sentence to the end of here. Now we're good. All right. Now let's read the next sentence or paragraph. Oh my gosh, I'm checking Messenger again. Why am I doing this? I'm getting even more distracted. I'm going on Zoom. I'm just going to talk to my friend really quick. Oh no, this is so bad. See, this is really bad. Let's see, let's go to the morning part 30 meeting. Let's say, what's up? Hey guys.
The pool is like this. The pool.
Yeah.
No. My thing is, you can't use a vertex in a priority queue because you can't iterate vertices. Although because it's not good at all.
Hey.
What's up with Jessup?
Yeah.
What's up with Jessup?
What's up with Jessup? We're actually on the podcast as we speak, so say hello.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What a guy.
What a guy.
Our computer science.
Exactly. All right, I'll go get back to my podcast, but I'll join you guys.
Okay. All right, so okay. So wait, what do you use your priority queue? What's your what is vertex string? Vertex filter.
My question is, how do I mute this?
A vertex with an identifier string, right? Okay, yeah. That's what I was thinking right now, yeah. But it's incomparable. It's not comparable because, of course it's not, because it was not implemented that way in the summer, because it always comes with an ash. I doesn't want to make things easy for us. Yeah, so, dude, I have not yet.
All right, well, that's kind of awkward. All right, so the songs are off. Now, what I'm going to do is I have 2 Zoom calls going on. It's crazy, it's crazy. Oh no, I'm getting so distracted right now. Oh wow, so I've just received material from, oh my goodness. I've just received material about the performance metrics and etc. Looks really good actually. So this is amazing. Oh my goodness. Wow. All right, I'm gonna send the last message here. All right. So now I'm going to go to the next sentence. Oh my goodness, I was so distracted. Sorry about that. But must here is I must play music, and we're going to make it happen. There we go. There we go. Who knew it was this easy? Oops. What happened? All right, we're ready. Okay, let's go to the next sentence. To be fair, the United Nations office, oh, this is kind of too loud. Why is it too loud? Let's change it. To be fair, the United Nations Office for Coordination, or the coordination? I don't know if it's the coordination. Let's see. OCHA. United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. Okay, wait a minute. I'm going to look at my thesis because I think I've spelled this wrong. So I'm going to go there and say humanitarian affairs. Humanitarian affairs. The United Nations Department of Humanitarian Affairs and the office for the coordination of humanitarian affairs. Oh, okay, I wrote it right. That's good. All right, so let's go on to the next part. So I'm sending an email again. What is happening? Come on, let's get onto it. Communications is, who is it? All right, I sent 2 emails. Oh my goodness. All right, we're back at it. We're back at it. I played the music and now I'm back. So I checked the spelling. These two organizations already conduct satellite analyses, but they lack an integrated, but they lack, but they lack, oops, but they lack an integrated workforce dedicated to working on satellite image analysis. They lack. Now I'm going to take this part out. Next sentence that says, experts happen to know how to interpret images. It's a little bit, can be derogatory, so I'm just going to say that. And then infrastructures for a central clearing agency will help improve the continuity, integration, neutrality, and depth of knowledge regarding satellite imagery analysis. This will also allow smaller NGOs to leverage these resources for their work. That being said, technology will never be a panacea. Excessive reliance on one type of technology can lead to lapses in judgment. For instance, the intelligence community during the Reagan administration was confident that rebels in Nicaragua had significant military buildup of fighter jets. Then often enough, it can end either as a self-fulfilling prophecy or perhaps worse, as an alarm that goes unheeded because of the frequency. Experts should double-check images with other technologies, other sources of information in order to prevent mass hysteria, and maintain credibility, uphold credibility, uphold their credibility. The policy outcome from different levels of analyses can seem diametrically opposed. An analysis focused on North Korea's domestic public health situation can produce the recommendation of delivering medical aid to North Korea in the form of vaccines and disinfection support. A more international outlook with a larger focus on the government's role in the public health situation can also lead to medical aid. Such recommendations are however, also likely to accompany criticisms against the government, such as its unwillingness to take sufficient preventative measures or prioritize citizens' health. Furthermore, policies along this line can isolate the country. So this is a new topic here, because things used to be talking about satellite imagery. Now we're talking about different agendas and how to incorporate them. Right? So these international levels, this comes beforehand. So maybe there is some part that I can bring all of these way before. So different, bring to front maybe. Furthermore, policies along this line can isolate the country from international community in the form of travel bans, reduction of trade, whether it be voluntary in the case of the coronavirus or imposed by neighboring countries, and even economic reduction of trade, whether it be voluntary in the case of the coronavirus or imposed by neighboring countries, and even economic sanctions if human rights violations are observed. Okay. At the same time, one could argue that the slightly different points of emphasis by the two communities lead to a more comprehensive coverage of the public health situation in North Korea. Public health concerns such as, okay, so this is all about public health. So I think what we can say is regarding public health in North Korea, I have to I think, qualify this by saying this is about public health. Regarding public health in North Korea, the policy outcome, vaccine directly opposed. All right. Now, at the same time, one could argue that the slightly different points of emphasis by the two communities lead to a more comprehensive coverage of the public health situation in North Korea. Public health concerns such as MDR-TB and the coronavirus present unique opportunities for the two communities to cooperate. Sharing information can be an easy way to form better mutual understanding of each other's viewpoints and take another step towards professionalization and away from politicization. The analysis of funding sources dispelled the idea that aid organizations should try to avoid being funded. Okay, so wait, this is about funding. Funding is different supporters, which should be afterwards. Okay, that's good. The analysis of funding sources dispelled the idea that aid organizations should try to avoid. I think I might have to add a little bit more information here. Add a little bit more here. So sharing information can be an easy way to form a better mutual understanding of each other's viewpoints and take another step towards professionalization and away from politicization. Especially when sharing information can be an easy way to form a better mutual understanding of each other's viewpoints and take another step towards professionalization and away from politicization. The paragraph I had about sharing information can be put in there. I have to say as mentioned before or as presented before, as previously argued, as mentioned above. Yeah, that's a better one. As mentioned above, sharing information can be an easy way to form a better mutual understanding of each other's viewpoint and take another. Yeah, that sounds good. It's good enough. Now, the analysis of funding sources dispelled the idea. It's a little bit fast. But oh well. So these were all about the case studies, the satellite imagery and the public health information. And then I have political and financial and political supporters, right? And so, are there solutions regarding the different ideological goals? I think there could be more meat on the ideological goals. Recommendations on ideological goals could be something. Recommendations on ideological goals can be the next step, probably. Anyways, going back to it, the analysis of funding sources, dispelled. Financial supporters. The analysis of financial supporters, dispelled the idea that aid organizations should try to avoid being funded by or associated with the US government in fear that the North Korean government would stop dealing with or suddenly deny access to those organizations. Part of aid groups' hesitance to cooperate with the US government and human rights organizations is the fear that they would appear to be working with entities that criticize North Korea for its human rights track record, including the US government and human rights organization. No, including this part can go. If North Korea were to deny access to organizations, cooperating with the US government, it would have to ban, turns out, if North Korea were to deny access to organizations North Korea would have to ban most aid groups because their funding comes directly from USAID, from government sources including the USAID. The reality of humanitarian aid in North Korea, reinforces the idea that access to the country and the number of staff members working on humanitarian projects depend primarily on the dollar amount of aid provided to North Korea, not where that money comes from. Furthermore, indirect funding by the US government shows that countries can fund humanitarian aid while raising human rights concerns at the same time. In fact, Japan provide aid to North Korea. So let's see, I'm looking for articles that talk about this, of Japanese aid to Pyongyang. All right. Let's see. So I'm reading stuff right now. I don't know if I don't think I should add that. See, this is exactly the point I've been making before. I'm writing the conclusion. Why am I researching, right? I have to catch myself early because you actually don't need any more information. You already have all the information you have, Jessup. Put that into your skull because you should be really writing and wrapping up. And I got distracted. It's just in me. I just have to look more into Google because Google is the answer to all curiosity. But we're getting back on track. All right, ready, go. The reality of aid in North Korea reinforces the idea that it is something like that. Okay, next sentence. Because USAID is, my question is USAID being used as, like, do you use the USAID? I'm assuming yes. USAID. Oh no. The is not used before USAID in this example. But let's see. Let's see, I'm going to read another article just to make sure that USAID is used with the or not. I know these are small things, but they're still important. Part of the USAID may hold for USAID. Okay, well, I have to change what I just fixed before, which was the USAID. Where is that? Here, I'm going to search on my thesis paper just to make sure. Let's see. The USAID, USAID. Okay, it seems like USAID is not used with anywhere, which is good. All right, we're just going to move on. Because USAID is governed by the President, Secretary of State, and National Security Council, aid by the U.S. is inevitably shaped by presidential elections, diplomatic considerations, and national security concerns. Policy recommendation for aid organizations can be secure funds through legislations that provide sustainable funding. The lobbying process to gain funding, however, may seem to be against many aid organizations' principle regarding political neutrality. For organizations following principles of new humanitarianism Actually, organizations following principles of new humanitarianism may be more open to lobbying for sustainable funding. Furthermore, similar to how the issue of human rights in North Korea has reached a bipartisan status that surpasses everyday politics, one could argue that humanitarian aid is also a no-brainer issue that should be elevated to a bipartisan issue through lobbying, through extensive lobbying. This raises an interesting point that in order to avoid political influences, aid workers must ironically first gain enough political support across the aisle. Okay, so far so good. I have one more stuff here. I just don't know where to put this. That's the question. That's really the biggest question. So these are specific reasons why they fight, okay? So I might want to put this at the very start, actually. Yeah, I might want to put this challenges to cooperation part at the very start. So put this before the above recommendations. In order to find ways for the two communities to harmoniously cooperate in the future, we must first investigate the specific issues the two areas are criticized for and try to address those issues. Critics against humanitarian aid acknowledge the morality of delivering humanitarian aid, but the largest objection to humanitarian aid lies in the impact it has on the North Korean regime. According to Yo, aid can prolong the misery of ordinary North Koreans by legitimizing and propping up the regime. Humanitarian aid can have the effect of rewarding bad behavior because it allows North Korea to keep its priorities of military development and luxury goods rather than feeding its own people. Gordon Flake, a Korea specialist at the Perth, USA, argues that there's never been a point where North Korea could not take care of its own. Rather, critics argue that humanitarian aid can demotivate a government from providing these services to its own people in expectation that the international community will always help. So, critics argue that humanitarian aid can allow the North Korean regime to reallocate expenditures for priorities other than feeding its people. So what I want to do is, remember the co-financing model? So I've mentioned co-financing model in the how they can foster projects part. Now I can really put it in here. Critics argue that humanitarian aid can allow the North Korean regime to reallocate expenditures for priorities other than feeding its people. Stephen Haggard, a professor at UC San Diego, argues that during the peak of the famine in the 1990s, North Korea started to reduce its commercial imports of food with the influx of aid. The regime curtailed its purchase of grain down to 1/10 of its original levels. Haggard argues that aid has substituted for or crowded out commercial imports rather than supplementing them. Let's change this back to normal font. Part of the problem lies in the difficulty in ensuring that the food is properly delivered to the people in need. Haggard argues that this monitoring effort is a leaky sieve, and the regime diverts about 10 to 30%. He argues that part of the problem lies in this. During the famine, North Korea supposedly thwarted aid to the hardest hit parts of the country and distributed and sold that food at black markets, at other markets including during the famine, North Korea supposedly thwarted aid to the hardest hit parts of the country and sold at other markets such as Namhung Market. Sold at other markets such as Namhung Market in Nanju. For the food that was actually distributed, the North Korean regime, critics argue that the North Korean regime only gave out food to people it considered crucial to the regime, according to the United Nations. According to the UN Commission of Inquiry. Government officials in Pyongyang reportedly received a larger ratio of grain than ordinary citizens. On the other hand, triaged populations did not have access to imported food because they were not considered the country's priorities. Critics against humanitarian rights agree with the need for human rights in North Korea, but they argue that naming and shaming worsens the living conditions human rights advocates purport to defend. Economic sanctions have denied prosperity to ordinary North Koreans. Worsens the living conditions human rights advocates purport to defend. Economic sanctions have denied prosperity. In contrast, critics, sanctions have denied prosperity to ordinary North Koreans. The State Department denied travel permissions for, you know what, I think I should add this to the very top. Add this to very beginning, right after the roadmap. In contrast, critics against human rights agree with the need. Critics against human rights against human rights agree with the need for human rights, for basic rights in North Korea, for oh no. Oh, okay. Oh my goodness, that was scary. I just deleted like my notes. Okay, I'm good. All right. Need for basic rights. In contrast, critics against human rights agree with the need for basic rights in North Korea, but they argue that the naming and shaming argues that the naming and shaming tactic strategy worsens the living conditions human rights advocates purport to defend. Following this argument, economic sanctions have denied prosperity to ordinary North Koreans. The State Department denied travel permissions for humanitarian aid workers, despite critics' argument that aid must be exempt from economic sanctions. Critics argue that human rights advocates do not acknowledge the positive impact of humanitarian aid. Critics argue that human rights advocates do not acknowledge the positive impact of humanitarian aid. Notably, Andrew Natsios, a former administrator of USAID, pointed out that international food has stimulated private markets, reduced the price of food in the markets, and undermined the central government propaganda concerning South Korea and the United States. Human rights criticisms proponents of engagement and aid argue that human rights criticisms disrupt diplomatic efforts. Proponents of aid argue that human rights criticisms disrupts diplomatic efforts of engagement, especially criticisms regarding the effectiveness of humanitarian aid. Criticisms against the effectiveness of aid often leads to donor countries shying away from contributions, and North Korea rejecting humanitarian aid to save face domestically. Proponents of aid, therefore, criticize human rights advocacy for proponents of aid, therefore, see human rights advocacy as a naming and shaming campaign that is used for political purposes. So I'm going to take out the polarization part. The critics point out that human rights have become so politicized and enmeshed with security issues that these criticisms that rights advocacy is no longer genuinely concerned. It no longer concerns citizens' well-being. Proponents of aid argue that human rights have become so politicized and meshed with security issues that rights advocacy is no longer about the people in North Korea. The conservative backing of human rights organizations had a polarizing effect. So I think what I want to do is I'm going to take out two sentences here. The first part about conservative backing, and then the second part about the liberal backing. Human rights advocates still convey, actually, what I want to do is actually put these in as part of the political supporter part. Human rights advocates completely denied. Human rights advocates completely denied previous Clinton-style engagement efforts in a New York Times op-ed. Norimitsu Oniyoshi. Let's see, I'm trying to mute. Okay, perfect. So, let's see. Let's go. All right, human rights advocates completely denied previous Clinton-style engagement efforts. A journalist at the New York Times journalist argues that the human rights issue has become so politicized that the actual plight of North Koreans is often emphasized or de-emphasized for other ends. All right, so this is a pretty big mess right here, but what I'm trying to say here is that human rights advocates still convey strategic beliefs from nuclear negotiations Okay, this part is kind of hard. I am at a crossroad. This part's kind of hard to really figure out. So I think we're gonna pause this, actually stop it, because I've been studying for at least an hour. So I'll call it a day. No, not call it a day yet. Not yet, don't worry. But I will go on and say, this was a good session. I will be coming back to this part to really structurally change a lot here. This is like a really important part. All right. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.